Let's start with Red Death, the monstrous fusion of Batman and the Flash, a nightmare fueled by grief, desperation, and a hunger for speed. On Earth 52, Bruce Wayne's war on crime had cost him dearly. Every Robin he had ever trained, every young hero who stood by his side, had fallen in battle. Their deaths broke him. Gone was the calculated detective who valued justice. In his place stood a man desperate to change fate, to seize power by any means necessary. With his world teetering on destruction, Bruce turned to his universe's Flash, pleading for access to the Speed Force, believing it could save everything. But Barry Allen refused. Batman doesn't take no for an answer. Using stolen weapons from Flash's greatest enemies, the Rogues, Bruce took Barry down. He chained him to the Batmobile, now fused with the cosmic treadmill, and drove them both straight into the Speed Force. What emerged was no longer Bruce Wayne, and no longer Barry Allen. The two had merged into one, a monstrous speedster known as the Red Death. Bruce controlled the body, while Barry's consciousness remained trapped inside, a silent witness to the horrors that followed. As Red Death, Bruce had what he always wanted: speed, power, and the ability to strike faster than anyone. He tore through Gotham, slaughtering his rogues gallery in seconds, Barry's voice screaming in his head to stop. But there was no stopping now. The world was still crumbling, and despite all his newfound power, Bruce failed to save it. That's when he met the Batman Who Laughs, who offered him a place among Barbados' twisted army of Dark Knights. With nothing left to lose, Bruce accepted. Once he entered Prime Earth, Red Death wasted no time unleashing havoc. He summoned a Speed Force storm over Central City, aging people into dust in mere moments. He targeted Barry's loved ones, proving that this wasn't just about power, it was about pain. A brutal showdown between him and the Flash pushed Barry to his limits, but he wasn't alone. During the Justice League's search for nth metal, Barry fought back inside Red Death's mind, breaking free and altering their shared form. A surge of positive energy transformed the Red Death into something new, allowing Barry Allen of Earth 52 to briefly reclaim control. But the Batman Who Laughs was always 5 steps ahead. He had planned for Red Death's betrayal. The positive energy wasn't salvation, it was a death sentence. The corrupted Speed Force within Bruce destabilized, and in a final agonizing moment, the Red Death exploded into pure light, wiped from existence. Red Death is more than just a fusion of Batman and the Flash. He's a twisted reflection of Bruce Wayne's worst nightmare. He feared losing his family so much that he became a monster in the name of saving them. He wanted control, but was ultimately controlled by his own darkness. And in the end, not even the Speed Force could outrun the consequences of his actions. The Merciless, a name that strikes fear into gods and mortals alike. This was no ordinary Batman. This was a Bruce Wayne who had abandoned his soul, his morality, and everything that once made him a hero. He wasn't just a warrior, he was war itself. Hailing from Earth 12, the Merciless wasn't born from tragedy like the Batman we know. He was forged in battle. For 2 years, Bruce and Wonder Woman fought side by side against Ares, the relentless god of war. Ares had crafted a helmet, an artifact that magnified his strength 100-fold, turning him into an unstoppable force. Together, Bruce and Diana tore through the battlefield, clinging to their mission, to their love. They believed they could win, that justice would triumph. Then everything changed. During their final battle with Ares, Diana fell. Bruce believed the love of his life was dead. Grief consumed him. Rage blinded him. He ignored her warnings, ignored his better judgment, and placed the war god's helmet upon his head. In an instant, he became something far worse than Ares ever was. The raw, unchecked power of war flooded his veins. The ideals of mercy and restraint, things that once defined Batman, became meaningless. And so, with one swift stroke, he killed Ares. Then Diana rose. She had survived, and she begged Bruce to take off the helmet before it was too late. Bruce had tasted absolute power, and he wasn't about to let it go. The man who once vowed never to take a life now struck down the woman he loved without hesitation. The Batman who stood for justice had become a god of destruction. From there, the Merciless waged a war unlike anything the world had ever seen. First, he wiped out his enemies. Then, he turned on his allies. One by one, heroes fell before him. The Justice League, the Titans, the Green Lantern Corps, none could stand against him. Even Olympus itself wasn't safe. Bruce stormed the heavens, slaughtering the gods and taking their domains for himself. The Amazons, his former allies, met the same fate. He melted down the coins from their afterlife to forge a massive golden drachma, binding their souls into an undead army that marched under his command. As his world crumbled into the dark multiverse, the Merciless was approached by the Batman Who Laughs. He offered Bruce a chance to spread his war across the multiverse, to prove that power was the only truth. Without hesitation, the Merciless accepted. This was Bruce Wayne at his darkest, his worst nightmare made real. A Batman with unlimited strength and no morality. A man who had forsaken love, justice, and everything he once fought for, all in the name of war. Where Batman stood as a symbol of restraint, the merciless was pure, unchecked conquest. His war would never end, because mercy, that was for the weak. Flashpoint Batman, Thomas Wayne, is not just another version of the Dark Knight. He is Batman at his most ruthless, forged in the flames of a tragedy far worse than Bruce Wayne's. His origin is a cruel inversion of the classic story. The night the Wayne family walked out of a movie theater, it wasn't the parents who perished, it was young Bruce. Overcome with grief and rage, Thomas tracked down Joe Chill, the mugger who pulled the trigger, and beat him to death with his bare hands. But that night birthed two monsters. While Thomas donned the mantle of Batman, a brutal, merciless vigilante, his wife, Martha, descended into madness. Overcome by sorrow, she carved a twisted grin into her face and became this reality's Joker. Their war became personal, a never-ending spiral of pain and destruction. Unlike Bruce, Thomas had no patience for redemption or mercy. His Batman executed criminals without hesitation, using his wealth, sourced from the Wayne casino empire, to wage an all-out war on Gotham's underworld. He worked with Jim Gordon and even relied on Oswald Cobblepot as his head of security, a far cry from the ideals of the traditional Batman. He showed a sliver of humanity when he took in a young thief, Catwoman, but that hope was ripped away when Martha took her life. That loss only made him crueler. Then came Barry Allen, the Flash from another world, who shattered Thomas's perception of reality. When Barry revealed that in another timeline, Bruce was alive and had become Batman, Thomas's entire purpose shifted. He fought alongside Barry to undo the nightmare world they lived in, even delivering a killing blow to the Reverse Flash. Mortally wounded in the final battle, he entrusted Barry with a letter for Bruce, his last words to the son he never got to raise. But death did not claim Thomas Wayne. The Reverse Flash, reveling in chaos, saved him, pulling him into a multiversal chessboard of conflicts. He allied himself with Bane, believing that breaking Bruce's spirit would finally give his son a chance at happiness. When that plan failed, he was beaten and left for dead. Later, he found himself joining Justice Incarnate, fighting threats beyond imagination, battling Darkseid, the Great Darkness, and forces that transcended time itself. Flashpoint Batman is the embodiment of pain-driven justice, a man who abandoned restraint in pursuit of vengeance. He is a master combatant, a brilliant strategist, and an unrelenting force of nature. But beneath the hardened killer remains a father who, in the end, still believed in his son. His legacy isn't just one of brutality, it's of a man who, despite everything, still clung to the idea that Bruce Wayne was worth saving. Zur-En-Arrh wasn't just a place. It wasn't just a name, it was something buried deep inside Batman himself, a wild, untamed force lurking in the shadows of his mind, waiting for the moment it was needed. Originally, the name came from an alien scientist named Talano, a devoted admirer of Batman who became his world's own version of the Dark Knight. When Bruce arrived on Talano's planet, he found himself empowered by its strange energy, granting him Superman-like abilities. Side by side, the two Batmen battled towering robotic invaders, an unstoppable duo fueled by justice on an intergalactic scale. Their victory sealed, Talano gifted Bruce the Bat-Radia, a device capable of scrambling enemy technology before sending him back to Earth. But back on Earth, Zur-En-Arrh meant something entirely different. It wasn't a name, it was a buried personality. Years earlier, Dr. Simon Hurt, a twisted psychologist obsessed with breaking Batman, had implanted a hidden trigger in Bruce's mind. If Bruce's sanity ever shattered, if his psyche was ever pushed past the breaking point, the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh would awaken, a ruthless, primal version of Batman, stripped of Bruce Wayne's moral restraint. This wasn't the detective. This wasn't the caped crusader. This was Batman at his rawest, unfiltered and unrelenting. When Dr. Hurt and the Black Glove tried to tear Bruce's life apart, they activated the trigger. Lost in the depths of his broken mind, Bruce wandered Gotham, clad in a crude, jarring costume of red, yellow, and purple, a far cry from his usual dark, calculated persona. But this Batman didn't need stealth or elegance. He was survival incarnate. With the Bat-Radia in hand, he hacked systems, infiltrated Arkham, and turned unpredictability into his deadliest weapon. Even Batmite appeared, not as a mystical being, but as a hallucination, a tiny fragment of Bruce's consciousness, trying to keep him from spiraling too far into madness. But the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh wasn't just a byproduct of trauma. It was a failsafe, a deliberate backup personality designed by Bruce himself, a version of Batman who could keep fighting, no matter what. And it didn't stop there. This identity resurfaced in later battles, including his war against Failsafe, a relentless, precision-engineered robot built to eliminate Bruce if he ever crossed the line. Across the multiverse, every Batman had their own version of Zur-En-Arrh, proving that even the world's greatest detective needed a contingency plan against himself. The garish colors, the brutal edge, it wasn't just style, it was a statement, it was survival. Whether tearing through Gotham's underbelly or standing against impossible cosmic threats, The Batman of Zur-Anar was proof that even Batman's limits had no limits. Owlman, also known as Thomas Wayne Jr., is one of the most chilling and ruthless figures in the multiverse. On Earth 3, a world where everything is flipped on its head, where heroes are villains and villains are kings, Owlman is Batman's dark reflection, a predator shaped by tragedy and consumed by control. His origins are steeped in blood. Unlike Bruce Wayne, whose pain forged him into a protector, Thomas Jr. embraced the darkness. The younger brother he might have loved, Bruce, was gunned down alongside their mother. But instead of seeking justice, Thomas fled into the night, taking refuge with Joe Chill, the very man who pulled the trigger. This wasn't an escape, it was an evolution. In Joe Chill, Thomas didn't see a murderer, he saw a teacher. From there, he became Gotham's nightmare. Where Batman fights for justice, Owlman thrives on chaos, fueled by a mind warped by enhancement drugs that sharpened his intellect beyond human limits. He transformed into a strategist of terrifying precision. His utility belt held gadgets designed not just to disarm, but to destroy. His night vision turned darkness into his domain. And with cutting-edge technology allowing him to soar through the skies, he didn't just stalk his enemies, he hunted them. Gotham bent to his will. He didn't wage war against crime, he commanded it. His alliance with Boss Gordon, a crime lord as corrupt as the city itself, made him untouchable. But Gotham was just the beginning. Owlman became the mastermind behind the crime syndicate of America, Earth 3's most feared group of villains. While Ultraman ruled with brute force, Owlman played the long game, allowing rebellion to simmer, ensuring that chaos never settled. If the world always needed a leader, then that leader would always be him. But his greatest weapon wasn't his intellect or his arsenal, it was his manipulation. In secret, he carried on an affair with Superwoman, Ultraman's partner, using their deadly entanglement as another tool in his never-ending chess match against his so-called ally. Every move was calculated, every relationship was leveraged, yet for all his cruelty, there was something hauntingly human about Owlman. His twisted war against his father, Thomas Wayne Sr., who had become Gotham's commissioner and fought against corruption, was laced with deep, unresolved pain. When Owlman visited the main DC universe, standing before his family's graves, the monster cracked, just for a moment. The broken man beneath the Predator revealed itself, but only briefly. With his sidekick Talon, a vicious, warped version of Robin, at his side, Owlman's reign of terror continued across comics, animated series, and video games. He stands as a chilling reminder of what Batman could become if his resolve ever wavered. Because Owlman isn't just a villain, he is Batman, without the lines, without the rules, and without mercy. The Devastator is what happens when Batman's worst nightmare isn't just realized, it becomes him. On Earth number 1, the unthinkable happened. Superman, the symbol of hope, snapped. The reasons didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that he murdered Lois Lane and turned against humanity. The world crumbled under his unstoppable power, and Batman, the man who always had a plan, was out of options. At first, Bruce did what he always did. He tried to save his friend. He searched for answers, for a way to turn Clark back. But when reason failed and Metropolis burned, he knew there was only one path left: war. With nothing but a kryptonite-tipped spear, Bruce faced the strongest being on the planet in a battle that was never meant to be fair. Superman mocked him, laughed at his defiance, and, in a cruel twist, severed Bruce's arm. But Batman wasn't finished, not yet. The kryptonite spear was never his real plan. His true weapon was something far more desperate, a modified strain of the Doomsday virus. With no other choice, he injected himself, and in seconds, everything changed. Bones stretched, muscles ripped apart and rebuilt, and his mind, though still sharp, now pulsed with an uncontrollable rage. Batman had become something else, something monstrous. He was no longer just Bruce Wayne, he was the Devastator. Superman never saw it coming. Reborn with Doomsday's raw, unrelenting power, the Devastator tore through the last son of Krypton. With a single brutal strike, he drove a jagged bone spike straight through Superman's chest, ending the fight, and his friend, forever. But victory came at a terrible price. The Doomsday virus spread like wildfire, turning the people of Earth number 1 into monstrous, raging beasts. Gotham, Metropolis, the world, it was all lost. He offered Bruce something new, a purpose beyond a doomed world. He promised vengeance, power, and a place among the Dark Knights, the twisted Batman forged from nightmare realities. With nothing left, Bruce accepted. The Devastator became a harbinger of doom, a living apocalypse, and he set his sights on Earth Zero. When he arrived, he didn't just attack, he infected. He used Lois Lane as a carrier, spreading the Doomsday virus like a plague. Metropolis fell into chaos as Kryptonians turned into mindless monsters. He clashed with heroes like Steel, Firestorm, Storm, and even Lobo, leaving nothing but destruction in his wake. But in the end, it was Superman, clad in Element X armor, who put an end to his rampage. The Devastator was never just another brute. He was the embodiment of betrayal, the fear of what happens when gods turn against men. His very existence was a testament to broken trust and desperate survival. With kryptonite breath capable of killing in seconds, bone spikes sharp enough to tear through Kryptonians, and the horrifying ability to spread the Doomsday virus with a touch, he was an unstoppable force of destruction. But even beneath the monstrous exterior, the mind of Batman remained, cold, calculating, and ruthless as ever. A grim reminder that even the world's greatest detective can only prepare so much before the darkness finally consumes him. The Batman who laughs is what happens when the world's greatest detective falls into absolute darkness. He wasn't just another Batman gone rogue, he was something far worse. He was a nightmare, a fusion of the sharpest mind in the DC universe with the boundless madness of the Joker. His story began on Earth 22, a world destined for ruin. This Batman faced a Joker unlike any before, the clown prince of crime, knowing he was dying from the very chemicals that had created him, unleashed one final plan of destruction. He wiped out Gotham's entire rogues gallery, slaughtered the police force, and even dissolved Commissioner Gordon in acid. His goal wasn't just chaos, it was corruption, and his ultimate target, Batman himself. In his last act of horror, the Joker led Batman to a familiar alley, one that echoed the place where Bruce Wayne had lost everything as a child. There, he murdered a couple in front of their daughter, just like he had done to Bruce all those years ago. But he didn't stop there. He had been infecting children all over Gotham, turning them into monstrous, laughing puppets under his control. For Batman, this was the final straw. Rage overtook him, grief drowned him, and in a single moment of fury, he broke his one rule. He killed the Joker, snapping his neck with his bare hands. But the joke wasn't over. As the Joker's body fell lifeless, a hidden toxin was released, creeping into Batman's lungs and corrupting him from the inside. It wasn't just a poison, it was a transformation. Bruce didn't just lose control, he lost himself. The toxin rewired his mind, merging his unparalleled intellect with the Joker's insanity. He became something new, something terrifying. He became the Batman who laughs. With his morality erased and his genius untethered, he slaughtered everyone who opposed him. His world crumbled beneath his chaos, and he led his army of dark Robins, twisted, broken children shaped in the Joker's image, on a reign of destruction. But even that wasn't enough. Recruited by Barbatos, the dark god of the dark multiverse, he became something even more dangerous, a general in an apocalyptic war against the multiverse itself. The Batman who laughs wasn't just another villain. He was the ultimate warning of what happens when Batman's greatest strength, his discipline, his intelligence, his sheer willpower, is turned against everything he once stood for. He was fear itself. He was madness perfected. And worst of all, he was Batman at his absolute worst. Because nothing, not even the greatest heroes, could predict what he would do next. He was the Joker's greatest triumph, the one enemy who could finally break the bat and ensure that the laughter never stopped. Bruce Wayne has worn many faces across the multiverse, but in the dark multiverse, he became something beyond human, something cosmic, a force of reality itself, a Batman with the godlike powers of Dr. Manhattan, a being known only as Batmanhattan. It all started when Bruce discovered the Comedian's Button, an artifact pulsing with mysterious energy, whispering secrets of the multiverse. Batman, ever the detective, couldn't resist its call. His mind raced with possibilities, and his relentless curiosity drove him to understand it. He constructed an intrinsic field generator, an experimental machine designed to tap into the button's power. But Bruce was not alone in his quest for knowledge. The Batman who laughs, his most twisted counterpart, was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As Bruce stepped into the machine to investigate a malfunction, the laughing monster sealed the door and activated it. In an instant, Bruce's body was ripped apart at the molecular level, scattered across the very fabric of existence. Yet he refused to die. Molecule by molecule, he willed himself back into existence. It took months, but he reassembled his body, rising as something far greater than Batman, something far more dangerous. He had become a living god, his mind now attuned to the very strings of reality. But before he could fully grasp his new omnipotence, the Batman who laughs struck again. With a single, well-placed energy blade, he lobotomized Bruce, taking away the very thing that made him Batman, his mind. Now, the once great Bruce Wayne was reduced to a mindless weapon, a cosmic puppet bound to the Laugh's unholy crusade. For a time, Batmanhattan was hidden, a secret trump card for the Batman who laughs and Perpetua, the dark goddess aiming to reshape all reality. But when Wonder Woman struck down the laughing nightmare, his final act of madness was even more horrifying. He replaced Bruce's fractured mind with his own, creating an entity with the infinite power of Dr. Manhattan and the depravity of the Batman who laughs. Imagine it, a being with limitless cosmic strength, the ability to reshape reality at a whim, to see every possible future, past, and present at once, to bend time and space to his will. He could erase enemies with a mere thought, rebuild himself from nothing, and remake existence in his own twisted image. Yet, for all his power, Batmanhattan was a slave, a broken god, trapped in a cruel grin, forever following the will of another. The hydrogen atom burned into his forehead marked him as a perversion of the original Dr. Manhattan, a grotesque echo of what could have been. Was he the most terrifying Batman to ever exist? Or was he just another casualty of the dark multiverse? Another Bruce Wayne who flew too close to the sun and burned for it? Either way, one thing is certain. When Batman becomes a god, the multiverse trembles. And when a god is corrupted, there's no telling what horrors will follow. Thanks for watching. If you had a blast with this video, be sure to like, drop a comment, and hit that subscribe button for more epic content.